My name is Muriel Nicholson. I'm 35 years old, and until 3 months ago, I would have sworn my marriage was one of the steady ones, the kind people quietly envy because it doesn't look flashy, but it lasts. I'm a commercial pilot for a regional airline. 12 years in, I've learned that flying isn't romance. It's discipline. It's early alarms that feel like betrayal. It's airport coffee that tastes like burnt patience. It's hotel rooms that all smell the same. Industrial detergent and loneliness, because the only thing personal in them is whatever you unpack. But I love it. I love the focus it demands. I love the calm you have to wear, even when a storm is chewing at the runway and the cabin is full of nervous laughter. In the air, you don't get to be dramatic. You just get to be responsible. My husband, Daniel Harper, is 33. He works in pharmaceutical sales, the kind of job where confidence is currency and charm is a skill you can sharpen like a knife. He makes good commission, drives a company car, wears that polished, professional look like he was born in it. People meet him and immediately assume he knows what he's doing. I did too. We met at a friend's wedding 10 years ago. Not a movie moment, no spotlight, no lightning bolt, just conversation that lasted longer than it should have. We were the last two still sitting at a table after the DJ packed up, talking like we'd known each other for years. 2 months later, he told me he'd never felt this easy with anyone. 2 years after that, we got married. His family went all out for the wedding. 300 guests, live band, open bar that never seemed to run dry. I was a flight instructor back then, building hours and living on careful budgeting. I remember staring at the floral arrangements and thinking, this is more money than my entire checking account. Daniel's parents paid for most of it. At the time, I felt grateful. I told myself it meant they welcomed me. Now, when I replay those early memories, I notice details that didn't register then. The way Daniel's mother corrected the caterer loudly, like she wanted the whole room to hear she could. The way his father talked about standards and presentation. The way people kept saying I was lucky, Daniel chose me, like love was a promotion I'd been granted. Our first apartment was modest. 2 bedrooms, a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy. Daniel worked in retail management back then, before a college connection helped him break into pharma sales. We spent weekends exploring the city, trying restaurants we could barely afford, planning our future over cheap takeout. I used to come home from long days of instructing and find him on the couch, shoes off, telling me about customers who yelled over coupons. We'd laugh, we'd complain. We'd touch each other like we still couldn't believe we were allowed to. Those early years felt real. 2 people building something from scratch. Then I got hired by the regional airline and the world tilted. Suddenly there was real money, real stability. Daniel landed his pharma job. Within 3 years, we bought the house in the suburbs. 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, the whole packaged dream. We upgraded furniture. Took vacations to places we'd once only talked about. People stopped calling us young and figuring it out, and started calling us set. For the first 8 years, it worked. Or at least, I thought it did. Daniel complained sometimes about my schedule. I'd be gone 3 or 4 days, then home for 3 or 4. I always made sure my home days were home. I did laundry, fixed things, cooked when I could, listened when he talked about his work. He'd lean against the kitchen counter while I chopped vegetables and tell me about doctors who refused to see him, about quotas, about competitors. And his parents loved me back then. His dad would invite me to golf and tell me I had a good head on my shoulders. His mom cooked elaborate Sunday dinners and made sure to include my favorite dessert, like she wanted to prove I'd been folded into the family. I remember thinking, this is what safety feels like. I didn't understand it wasn't safety. It was conditional approval. It was warmth that could be switched off the moment I stopped fitting their picture. The shift began about 6 months ago, right after Daniel got promoted to a territory that required more travel. More conferences, more overnights in different cities, more dinners with clients, more new people who laughed too loud at his jokes. He came back from one trip glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years. It's just exciting, he told me, dropping his suitcase in the hallway like a man who owned the whole world. Being around dynamic people, people who are really living. Something in my chest tightened, but I ignored it. I told myself he was just energized. A promotion does that. Then the comments started. Our marriage feels routine, he said one night, scrolling his phone while I stood at the sink, rinsing a plate. Routine isn't always bad, I replied carefully. It's not bad, he said, like he was trying to be kind. It's just Predictable. Predictable. Like a weather report, like a flight plan, like something you tolerate until you can afford an upgrade. I suggested a vacation, something new. A weekend away, maybe? A new hobby? Couples counseling, even. Daniel gave me this look, half pity, half irritation, like I'd missed the point. That's exactly what I mean, Muriel, he said. Your solution is always scheduling something, planning another activity. Where's the spontaneity, the excitement? I almost laughed, but it came out bitter. Spontaneity is hard when both our jobs run on schedules, I said. Especially mine. He shrugged. See? That. You always make it sound like there's nothing we can do. That was red flag number 1, even if I didn't call it that then. The way he started talking like our marriage was a problem to fix instead of a life to protect. Then came red flag number 2, Lena. Lena was his coworker, recently divorced, 42. The type of woman who walked like she owned every room she entered and spoke like she was always the smartest person there. Daniel started mentioning her the way you mention a podcast you can't stop listening to. Lena says marriage is an outdated construct, he told me one night. I raised an eyebrow. Lena's been divorced twice, right? He laughed. That's why she knows. She's experienced. Or she's just loud, I said, trying to keep it light. But Daniel didn't drop it. He came home and spent an hour telling me Lena's stories. Dating multiple people, rediscovering herself, refusing to be boxed in. He repeated her lines like they were quotes from scripture. People aren't meant to be with just one person their whole lives, he said, like he was testing the words out in his mouth. I stared at him across the kitchen island and felt something cold move through me. Do you believe that? I asked. Daniel hesitated just a fraction too long. I don't know, he said. I just think we got together young. Sometimes I wonder if we missed out on things. That sentence landed like a hairline crack in glass. Not shattering, not yet. Just enough that you know one wrong tap will ruin it. The talk happened on a Tuesday night. I'd just gotten back from a 3-day trip. I was tired in that deep, bone-level way that makes the world feel slightly out of focus. I wanted a shower, clean sheets, and the familiar comfort of Daniel's body next to mine. Instead, I walked into the kitchen and smelled dinner. Daniel had cooked. That should have been my first clue. We sat down to eat, and he had this nervous energy I'd never seen on him before. He kept fidgeting with his napkin, tapping his fork against his plate like he was counting down to something. I've been thinking about us, he started. My stomach tightened. Okay, I said, keeping my voice neutral. He took a breath that looked rehearsed. I love you, but I think we need to shake things up. I braced myself for counseling, for a big move, for him to say he wanted kids, or didn't want kids, or something heavy but still normal. Then he said it. I think we should open our marriage. I actually laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. Then I looked at his face. He wasn't smiling. The room went quiet in a way that felt unreal, like someone had turned down the volume on my life. You're serious, I said. Completely, he replied, voice steady. Too steady. Like this was a pitch he'd practiced in the mirror. We're young. We're attractive. We should be experiencing more of life. Don't you ever wonder what else is out there? I stared at him, my fork frozen halfway to my mouth, and in that moment I realized something terrifying. He wasn't asking a question. He was announcing a decision. And somewhere behind his eyes, there was already a version of our marriage that had ended. He just hadn't handed me the obituary yet. I didn't answer him right away. Not because I was weighing the idea, but because my brain was busy trying to understand how the man across from me could look so calm while saying something that felt like a controlled demolition of our life. Open our marriage, I repeated slowly, like saying it out loud might expose it as a joke. You're talking about sleeping with other people. Daniel nodded. Yes, but responsibly, ethically. Ethically, as if adding the word made it cleaner. I don't want that, I said. My voice surprised me, steady, almost clinical. I'm happy. I'm not wondering what else is out there. He frowned, just slightly. Are you happy, or are you just comfortable? There it was, the first blade. There's a difference, he continued, leaning forward. Comfort isn't fulfillment, Muriel. We've fallen into a routine. You know it. I know it. I pushed my plate away. My appetite had vanished. If you're bored, I said, choosing each word carefully, we can work on that. Together. Trips, therapy. Hell, I'll even switch my schedule if I can. He shook his head, almost pitying me. That's exactly what I mean. You want to manage this. Schedule it. Put it on a calendar. That's not passion. What you're describing sounds like chaos, I replied, and chaos doesn't fix marriages. He exhaled sharply, like I was being difficult on purpose. You're being defensive. No, I said, I'm being honest. That night turned into a 2-hour argument that felt less like a discussion and more like a sales pitch I hadn't asked to attend. Daniel had answers for everything. He talked about personal growth, evolution, removing pressure from monogamy. He quoted articles, referenced podcasts, mentioned studies without naming them. It was like listening to someone try to convince me to buy a timeshare. What brought this on? I finally asked. Is there someone specific? He stiffened immediately. God, why do you always jump to that? He snapped. No, this isn't about anyone else. This is about me being honest about what I need. What he needed. Not what we needed, not what I needed. Just him. I went to bed angry that night. He stayed up on the couch, laptop glowing in the dark like a third presence in our home. Over the next 2 weeks, the topic never left. Every conversation circled back to it somehow. He sent me articles about ethical non-monogamy, left a book on my nightstand titled The New Marriage Paradigm, made offhand comments about how traditional relationships were rooted in insecurity. Each time I said no, he didn't accept it. He reframed it. You're just scared, he said once casually, like diagnosing a flaw. You're closed-minded. You don't want me to grow. That one hurt the most, because suddenly my boundaries were being painted as sabotage. I mentioned it to Aaron, a colleague I'd known for years, during a layover. We were sitting in the crew lounge, drinking coffee that tasted like regret. He didn't even hesitate. Muriel, he said, lowering his voice, nobody pushes this hard for an open marriage unless they already have someone in mind, or they're already cheating. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. You really think so? I know so, he replied. I've seen this play out. It's always framed as growth. It's never about both people. That night, I came home exhausted, emotionally more than physically, and found Daniel waiting for me on the couch. He looked hopeful, almost eager. I've been thinking, he said, patting the cushion beside him. What if we try it for just 1 month? I stopped walking. A trial period, he continued quickly. Low risk. We set boundaries. Communicate. If it doesn't work, we close it back up. No harm done. A month, as if you could test drive betrayal. I don't like this, I said honestly, but I'm tired of fighting, and I'm tired of being told I'm the reason you're unhappy. He reached for my hands. You're not. This is about us evolving together. I looked at him, really looked, and wondered when together had started meaning on his terms. Fine, I said finally. 1 month, clear rules. His face lit up like I'd just agreed to buy him a new car. We spent the next evening laying out boundaries that we both pretended would protect us. No coworkers, no friends, no overnight stays. Always safe, regular check-ins. All the rules people make when they're trying to control something that's already out of control. This is going to be so good for us, Daniel said, hugging me. You'll see. I didn't feel relief. I felt like I'd just signed something I couldn't undo. The trial officially started that Friday. By Saturday morning, Daniel had already updated his dating profiles. I found him in the kitchen, phone in hand, smiling at the screen. Already? I asked. Just setting things up, he said lightly. You should do yours too. Don't overthink it. Just be yourself. That night, while he was in the shower, I created a profile. I didn't put much effort into it. One decent photo from a friend's wedding. A short bio, my job, hiking, cooking. That was it. I assumed nothing would come of it. I was wrong. By Sunday morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. 200 matches, dozens of messages. I stared at the screen, convinced it was a glitch. When I showed Daniel, he barely looked up from his phone. Wow, he said. That's great. How many do you have? I asked. 12 so far, he replied quickly. But quality over quantity, right? Something in his voice had changed. The excitement was gone, replaced by something sharper. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I realized something unsettling. This wasn't unfolding the way he imagined, and whatever came next wasn't going to be easy for either of us. By the middle of the first week, the imbalance was impossible to ignore. My phone buzzed constantly, messages that were polite, curious, oddly sincere. People asked about flying, about favorite cities, about whether jet lag ever stopped feeling like a personal insult. A few suggested coffee, a few suggested dinner. No pressure, no crude openers, just interest. Daniel's experience was different. He'd sit on the couch at night, scrolling harder than necessary, jaw tight. When he did talk about his matches, it was usually to complain. This guy asked for pictures right away, he muttered one evening, holding his phone out to me like evidence. Who does that? I don't know, I said gently. Block him? You don't get it, he snapped. Women have to wade through garbage just to find someone normal. He wasn't wrong, but there was something defensive in his tone, like he needed me to agree that the system was rigged against him, specifically him. By Wednesday, I had my first date. Coffee, midday, neutral territory. I told Daniel where I was going, per the rules. He nodded, a little too quickly. Have fun, he said. Then, after a beat, text me when you're done. The date was nice. Not fireworks, not betrayal disguised as romance, just two adults talking like adults. We laughed, we shared stories. When it ended, I felt lighter. Not because I wanted more, but because nothing about it felt wrong. Daniel had his first date that Friday. He spent 2 hours getting ready. New shirt, extra cologne, checked his hair 3 times in the mirror. There was an edge to his preparation that made my chest ache. When he left, I wished him a good night. He hesitated in the doorway, like he expected me to say something else. I didn't. He came home 3 hours later, deflated. How was it? I asked. Fine, he said flatly. She talked about her ex the whole time, then tried to get me back to her place. I nodded. I'm sorry. He went straight to bed. My second date happened the next day. Lunch, then a walk through a bookstore. Easy conversation, no expectations. When I got home, Daniel was on the couch, laptop open, swiping aggressively. How was it? He asked, not looking up. Nice, I said. We talked, walked around. That's it? He pressed. That's it? His jaw tightened. I have another date tomorrow, he said quickly. This one seems better. He's a lawyer, drives a Tesla. The emphasis felt pointed, like he was trying to reassert control through resume details. Sunday night, he came home early again. By the end of the second week, the pattern was clear. I'd gone on 6 dates, all pleasant. A few repeat coffees, 1 dinner. Nothing serious, nothing secretive. Daniel had gone on 5. None led to second dates. The house changed. Conversations shortened. Silences stretched. He started making comments that felt casual but landed heavy. Must be nice, he said once when I mentioned I had dinner plans. Being so in demand. I paused. You wanted this. I wanted us to grow, he replied, not whatever this is. Wednesday night of week 3, he cracked. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, when he came in and crossed his arms. We need to talk about this arrangement. I didn't look up. Okay. I think we should pause it. I kept chopping. We agreed to a month. I know what we agreed, he snapped, but I'm not comfortable with how this is going. I set the knife down and turned to face him. How is it going, Daniel? You know exactly how, he said. You're out every other night while I'm sitting here alone. You're welcome to go out whenever you want, I replied evenly. That was the whole point. It's not that simple, he shot back, and you know it. I studied his face, the frustration, the wounded pride, the anger that had nowhere to land. What did you think was going to happen? I asked quietly. I thought we'd both explore, he said. Struggle a little, figure it out together. And instead, I prompted. And instead, he admitted, voice dropping, you're having fun and I'm miserable. There it was. Not growth, not evolution. Envy. I'm sorry you're having a rough time, I said carefully, but we set rules. We set a timeline. I'm following what we agreed on. Rules can change, he said. Marriage is about compromise. I laughed then, a short, humorless sound. Is it? I asked. Because this started when you refused to compromise. His eyes filled with tears. Real ones. Why are you being so cold? He whispered. I'm not being cold, I said. I'm being honest. You pushed for this. You pressured me. You told me I was boring for wanting monogamy. And now that reality doesn't match your fantasy, you want to quit. I made a mistake, he said, voice breaking. I thought it would be different. What do you want me to do? I asked. Close it early? Pretend this didn't happen? Yes, he said immediately. I want us to close the marriage. Together. I leaned back against the counter, studying him. If your dates had gone well, I asked quietly, and mine hadn't, would we be having this conversation? He opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. That's not fair, he muttered. It's a yes or no question. Silence. He turned away, wiping his eyes. I don't want to do this anymore. Part of me wanted to end it right there, to go back, to rewind. But another part, the part that had spent 3 weeks being reminded I wasn't boring or undesirable, wasn't ready to pretend. I need time, I said. Time? He echoed. I'm your husband. I never left our marriage, I replied. This was your idea. He left the kitchen in tears. The bedroom door slammed. I finished cooking alone. The next morning, there was a note on the counter. Please don't go out tonight. We need to talk. I love you. I spent the day thinking. By evening, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't about dating. It was about control, and the moment he lost it, everything changed. The final week of the trial felt nothing like the first three. Daniel stopped pretending. He didn't ask about my plans anymore, didn't comment when I left the house. He moved through our home like a guest who'd overstayed his welcome, quiet, tense, wounded in a way that demanded attention but refused conversation. I didn't cancel my dates, not out of spite, not to punish him, but because I refused to bend reality just to soothe his regret. Every time I picked up my keys, I could feel his eyes on me. Not anger, something worse. A look designed to make me feel guilty for doing exactly what he had insisted I do. It didn't work. Saturday morning marked 1 full month since Daniel first said the words, "Open our marriage." I came back from a run to find him sitting on the couch, dressed but unmoving, hands clasped like he was waiting for a verdict. "The month's over," he said. "Technically tomorrow," I replied, grabbing water. "Close enough," he snapped. "We need to talk about what happens next." I sat across from him. "What do you want to happen?" I asked. "I want us to close the marriage," he said immediately. "Go back to how things were. Work on us." The speed of his answer told me everything. "Do you want to work on us?" I asked. "Or do you want me to stop seeing other people?" He hesitated, then exhaled. "Both," he admitted. "I hate that you're seeing other men. And yes, I want us to focus on each other." At least it was honest. "I don't think we can go back," I said quietly. His face drained of color. "What does that mean?" "It means this opened my eyes," I said, "to things I can't unsee, about you, about me, about our marriage." He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "You want a divorce," he said. "No," I replied. "I want time, real time, not another experiment. I need space to figure out whether this marriage still makes sense." He broke, full sobs, not performative, not controlled, just devastation. "I ruined everything," he whispered. "Isn't there anything I can do?" I thought about the past month, about the past year, about the decade before that. "I think we need to separate," I said finally, "not to punish you, to breathe, to think without guilt or pressure." "And the other men?" he asked, voice raw. "Are you going to keep seeing them?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "This was never about them." "Then what was it about?" he demanded. "Realizing I have options," I replied, "that I don't have to stay in something that makes me feel small for wanting stability." He covered his face with his hands. "I love you," he said. "I don't want to lose you." "Then you shouldn't have gambled our marriage on a fantasy," I said gently. 2 weeks passed. Daniel moved into this guest room. We were polite, distant, like coworkers sharing a space neither wanted to be in. I stopped dating, not because he asked, but because my heart was tired. The point had been survival, not conquest. One morning, I woke up to divorce papers on the kitchen table. Daniel was already gone. There was a note. "Since you've made it clear you don't want to work on this, I'm making the decision for both of us. I deserve someone who won't punish me forever for one mistake." One mistake. I stared at the papers until my coffee went cold. They were professionally prepared, fair, clean, 50-50 split, no spousal support. He'd been planning this while crying about reconciliation. I called Aaron. "He filed," I said. Aaron sighed. "Figures. This is damage control. He wants out before the story turns on him." "And make me the villain," I said. "Exactly." I met with a lawyer that afternoon. She reviewed everything and nodded. "He knows he's in the wrong," she said. "That's why this is clean." I signed. When I got home, Daniel was packing boxes. "You didn't waste time," he said without looking up. "Neither did you." "I'm moving in with Lena," he said. Ironic, right? Poetic, maybe. "I really thought we could grow together," he said quietly. "We did," I replied, "just not in the same direction." He looked at me then, really looked. "If your dates had gone well," he said softly, "we'd still be married." "Probably," I agreed. That truth sat between us, heavy and undeniable. He left that night. The house felt quieter. Not empty, just honest. The house didn't echo the way I thought it would after Daniel left. I'd expected emptiness to feel loud, to press against my ribs, to follow me from room to room like an accusation. Instead, it was quiet in a way that felt settled, like a lake after a storm finally burns itself out. Daniel moved out completely by the end of the week. We barely spoke. A few texts about logistics, utilities, the lawyer's timeline. The divorce would be final in about 2 months. Efficient, controlled, just the way he liked things when they were no longer serving him. I didn't cry the night he left. That surprised me. I sat on the living room floor with my back against the couch, surrounded by the faint outline of where his things used to be, and waited for the grief to crash down. It didn't. What I felt instead was something quieter and harder to name. Relief. Not happiness. Not yet. but relief that I didn't have to keep explaining myself, that I didn't have to keep proving I wasn't the problem for wanting stability, commitment, and respect. A week later, I ran into Lena at the grocery store. I almost laughed when I saw her, standing in the produce aisle like she belonged there, like she hadn't helped light the fuse under my marriage, and walked away smiling. "Muriel," she said brightly, "how are you holding up?" The concern in her voice was so artificial it bordered on insulting. "Fine," I replied. She nodded, lips pursed. "I hope there aren't any hard feelings about everything." I looked at her then, really looked. This woman who'd framed selfishness as enlightenment, who'd sold chaos as freedom, who'd encouraged my husband to gamble with something he hadn't been prepared to lose. "You know what, Lena?" I said calmly. "I hope you and Daniel have a great time together." Her smile faltered. "You both deserve each other." "That's uncalled for," she snapped. "So was convincing my husband to blow up our marriage," I replied evenly. "But here we are." I walked away before she could respond. Some conversations don't deserve closure. They deserve distance. A few days later, I got a text from Mark, one of the men I'd gone on a couple of coffee dates with during the trial. "Hey, I heard about the divorce. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. No pressure, but if you ever want to talk, or not talk, I'm around." I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. "Thank you, I appreciate that." We met for coffee a week later. Nothing romantic, no expectations, just two adults sitting across from each other, talking honestly. He didn't try to fix me, didn't frame my marriage as a lesson or a failure. He listened. That alone felt revolutionary. The house started to change after that. I rearranged furniture, gave away things I'd never chosen myself, started cooking again, not out of obligation, but curiosity. I worked out more, read books that had nothing to do with fixing relationships. I slept better. Daniel texted once, late at night. "Do you hate me?" I stared at the screen, surprised by how little anger I felt. "No," I replied. "I'm disappointed. There's a difference." He didn't respond. The divorce papers came back finalized faster than I expected. Clean, quiet, just like the settlement. I signed the last form, closed the folder, and sat in my car for a long moment before starting the engine. I thought I'd feel triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I felt grounded, like someone who'd been walking on uneven ground for years and finally stepped onto something solid. 3 months ago, I would have told you my marriage was strong. Now I know it was only strong as long as I stayed smaller than Daniel's restlessness. He didn't want partnership. He wanted permission to want more without consequences. What he didn't understand was that consequences aren't punishment. They're information. I didn't win anything. I lost a marriage. I lost the future I thought I was building. But I gained something quieter and far more durable. Clarity. I no longer apologize for wanting commitment. I no longer explain why stability matters to me. I no longer accept being framed as boring because I value consistency over chaos. Life goes on. It always does.